So we're back with Heather McCollum, who just read an awesome excerpt from Highland Conquest. And I'm very intrigued by how you set this series up, and it being the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and their sister. So I'm curious, like, did the theme come first, and how much did the theme inform the plot or characterization of each book?
So, I like alpha males. I like writing alpha males. I like conflict. And so I thought, who would be the most alpha males ever would be the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. But I don't write, these were not paranormal books. So they were raised that way mistakenly. And so it really helped me to come up with the characterization, because if they were raised a certain way, that's part of who they are. When you get to the fourth book, who's Death, he's my most tortured hero. Boss is, I think, a lot of my readers' favorite, because when he was born, his mother died and the father went insane. And when he was 5 years old, the father tells him, "You're an executioner. Your mother was your first execution." At 5 years old, he
Wow.
was told this. So you can see how what they are, what they were raised to be, totally influences how they see the world and how they see themselves. And sort of an overall theme of the series is you should be who you really are and not what you've been told to be, not what
Hmm.
you were raised to be. You need to develop who you really are. And these four brothers have golden hearts. So I love to write brawny Highlanders who have golden hearts. But they've been taught to be villains, really, in,
Hmm.
the heroines' minds anyway.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
does shape each one of them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so from there, you said you're a pantser. So you've had the theme, you have the characters. Uh, what comes next for you? Is it the plot? Is it like romantic
Hmm.
beats or
So what comes next for me is my collages.
ooh,
Yes.
wow.
So I am a very visual writer. So I tend to, like, I've got different, each book had its own pages, and
Yeah.
then I put them together.
Yeah.
I've
So
got
just for the audio only listeners, you're holding up like folders that have like
lots of
it's an
pictures.
old school Pinterest board for those of
Yes,
us who are
I like to cut and
millennials.
paste real pictures. So I do find them on Pinterest and I do find them on the internet. When I wrote the fifth book, the whole family takes part. So I had to go back and put all the heroes and heroines, but then I write things next to them, like their dates of birth and how many children they've had and when they had their children and their children's names and who was important in their lives, like what animals. There's a lot of animals in my books.
Hmm.
So that's how I keep track of. That's actually, I'm doing it right now for a new book that I'm working on. I have
Oh,
my
wow.
pictures cut out, and that's where I start, is trying to look at pictures, because I am terrible at plotting. I try really hard. I've written now, actually, I had like 30 books now. And so
Wow.
I've tried really hard to plot, and I do have a plotting board, which I'm going to hold up. So I use these white
Index cards.
index cards that are,
Do you
I
tape them
write on
together?
them. Hmm?
Are those
Yeah, they're
taped
all put
together?
together
Wow.
with contact paper. I bought them that way. So they
Oh.
fold up and you can erase them and reuse it.
Oh. Oh,
And you
cool.
can carry them just like this if you need to go somewhere.
Yeah, they fold up so you can put them in your purse or
Yeah.
something.
So then I go, after I start my collages, and I'll cut out pictures that I have no idea where it's going to fit into my
Mm,
book, but I'm drawn to the picture.
mm.
And so then I start to sort of write or come up with ideas around the pictures, right?
Yeah.
And start a framework. Conflict is always an important part. So like the book that I'm just now thinking about, that I started cutting out pictures, I'm like, what would be the first fight? What would be the big blow up, to start things? Or what could be the dark moment? What's the the knife that twists in, and I try to come up with those conflicts first, that then I try to plot backwards from there about backstory. And whenever I'm writing and I slow down, it's because I don't know enough of the backstory. I don't know enough about their motivations and goals, all those wonderful things. So then I
Yeah,
go back to my pictures and I'll add pictures that will help me figure out what those are.
that's very interesting. It's I've
It's
never
pretty
been able
convoluted.
to do that, but it's very fascinating to me. It's creativity just comes to everybody differently.
It is. Everybody's different. And also, I get about 2/3 of the way through and I think it's all crap. That's what I tell my husband. And he always reminds me, you're at
You
2/3 of the
always
way
feel
through,
that way.
aren't you? I'm like, yes.
That
He's like, that is part of your process.
yeah, and I think that comes to everybody. No matter how we're getting to the story, I think there's always about 2/3 of the way through. You're like, no, this
Yeah.
sucks.
Yes. Yeah.